So I didn't go into this movie with really any expectations. The trailers didn't really hype me up much for it, but I wasn't going in with like a negative attitude. And honestly, I left feeling okay. It didn't like it wasn't it's not an awful film, but at the same time it's not necessarily a good movie either. I just feel like it's not necessarily really a movie geared towards me right now in that sense. First off, I'm not a big fan of the Pride and Prejudice narrative to begin with. I do like certain characters and I do like the way certain people perform them, such as in the Masterpiece Theater version with Colin Firth and Jennifer Eel as Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. They do have good chemistry and they interact really well, but for me, that's more just of a performance thing than it is about the actual story. The actual story I just can't relate to because of the fact that it deals with like upper middle class people with many tracts of land and their biggest problem is who am I going to wed my daughter off to? Like, I just think automatically, honest to God, like, ugh, white people problems, right? If this was Oliver Twist and zombies, maybe I would care a little bit more because that kid's got it rough already. He's starving and now he has to deal with other things that are starving too. But that's not necessarily either about like I don't like romance or anything like that. I like a good romance. Casablanca is one of my favorite movies. I'm a Les Mis fan. Team Eponine, she got jerked around pretty bad by that dude, and Cosette didn't do anything to earn any affection. We're getting into my Les Mis shit right now. Pride and Prejudice and zombies. So yeah, not really a fan of the storyline, but I did like some of the cast here. Like the cast across the board is fine. If they were in just a straightforward Pride and Prejudice movie, they'd be fine. And there are certainly standouts from the more seasoned actors, such as Matt Smith as Mr. Collins, and he brings a lot of his 11th Doctor eccentricity to that role. You got Charles Dance actually playing a likable father. In fact, I do like the Bennett patriarch in a lot of the interpretations. He's always very much just like, women outnumber me, but I just gotta take it easy because they'll be the death of me yet, but I love them. And Lena Headey, you know what? Put a message in the comments if you can track down a more recent Lena Headey movie in which she actually cracks a smile that has nothing to do with malevolence or evil intentions. I want to see Lena Headey be in a feel-good movie for once. Because she's still playing like stone cold hearted harpy throughout everything I've seen her in so far. But yeah, like even the younger cast members are fine in their roles. It's just that the story, even when you put zombies in it, doesn't really engage me. And if anything, this is the interpretation of Pride and Prejudice I found the most boring. And it has zombies in it. So it's kind of weird in that aspect, but at the same time, I wasn't like hating on it so much. I feel maybe part of it has to do with the fact that it feels weird in my trying to logisticize even this wacky premise that anyone would still be so stiff upper lip and British amidst a zombie apocalypse. Forget like going to balls with swords and everything like that and just trotting down the way for tea over at the estate of the fellow you fancy. I would totally just be hunkered down in my mansion with all the weapons and food I could find and not answering the door for anybody. The violence and gore in this movie is pretty inconsistent too. Like they'll have no qualms about showing you a dead zombie body with its head cracked open like a Fabergé egg. But at the same time, they refuse to show more civilized zombies. That's a thing that exists in this world. They refuse to show these zombies get their heads blown off. Like at most, what you see is you hear a loud gunshot, and then the zombie's head is just no longer there. No blood spurts. Nope, like the zombie head is just gone. It's like as sensitive as a balloon. You just prick it and pop. Also, like there's one scene where Darcy tries to turn a bunch of civilized zombies feral by feeding them human brains. And so they're at this altar at this church and like scrambling over each other for the brains and the guts and all fall and everything. And it cuts this one zombie extra for like a split second. And he's got fistfuls of like pink matter and brains and stuff like that. It doesn't even look like he's enjoying it. He's just kind of like brushing his teeth with it almost. It's pretty hilarious actually. But because of those really weird inconsistencies with the violence and gore, a lot of the action sequences don't have a lot of razzle-dazzle to them. In fact, this is kind of a very slow film, I'm sure, to accompany that Pride and Prejudice narrative, which they stay faithful to up until the last 15 minutes or so, in which case I feel the screenwriter kind of panicked. I feel the screenwriter is also the director, I believe, in this movie. And they thought, oh crap, Pride and Prejudice, the original one, all the issues get resolved with a bunch of politely written letters. Oh crap, Seth Grahame-Smith's Pride and Prejudice with zombies ends kind of almost the same way with a couple of ninjas and duels and stuff like that. Well, fuck it. The one guy who's kind of a villain because he's a douchebag, let's make him king of the zombies and have a samurai sword fight between him and Mr. Darcy. Which could be cool if it wasn't so deadly serious. Like, I can't tell if this movie is trying to kind of poke fun at itself or if it is trying to be a very serious affair. But I guess I could see the appeal in this movie for die-hard Jane Austen fans who might be able to stomach a little bit of violence and gore. Like, I know my mom is a big Colin Firth fan, loved him as Mr. Darcy in the original Pride and Prejudice, TV miniseries from Masterpiece Theater, but she's not much into, swordplay and violence and stuff like that, so this might not be her cup of tea. There are probably some jokes in this movie that are hilarious to you, just based on the dialogue, that are just going right over my head because I'm not as familiar with the dialogue of Pride and Prejudice. Like, you can tell in certain scenes. There's one scene in particular where, Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy are having a verbal spat with regards to Mr. Darcy sending his friend away and telling him not to engage in fraternizing with her sister because he believes her to be inferior to him. And so this is the point in the story where, yeah, they do have kind of a parting of ways and don't like each other for a while. But to kind of go along with it in this scene, instead of just verbally spatting, they're also sparring, and she's showing off her Shaolin martial arts skills, and he's showing off his skills, and they have a fight with a furnace poker and a knife. So if you can kind of get behind them poking fun at some of the original material in that sense, cool, enjoy this movie, definitely. I just couldn't get into it because the original source material is totally kind of unrelatable to me. And like I said, it's not because I'm adverse to any romance or anything like that. It's just that this whole Regency era of Britain just doesn't connect with me on any level. But like I said, there were some moments of levity for me, whether they were intentional or not, it's who knows, but I'd have to say what kind of cracked me up most about this movie was some of the trailers that came before it, because I have a feeling a lot of the marketing people had a lot of fun with this. First up, you got the Joseph Fiennes, Draco Malfoy buddy cop movie about two Roman centurions investigating the disappearance of Christ's body in the movie Risen, I think it's what it's called. But you have to imagine one of the marketing people was like, it'd go great with this movie about zombies and the undead. A trailer about the story of Christ's resurrection, because he's kind of a zombie, right? The other trailer I got, which I felt was kind of out of place, from the people who made the Heaven is for Real movie, stars Jennifer Garner, and it's about her daughter having this incurable illness that no one knows what it is, but one day her kid falls out of a tree and lands on her head, and that magically cures everything. This is apparently based on a true story, and it becomes this big media frenzy. But what kind of makes it uneasy is the very last scene where she's with her kid, and the kid is saying haha, he told me everything was going to be okay. And Jennifer Garner gets really concerned for a second. She's like, honey, who told you? And the last shot in the trailer, I shit you not, is this little kid going. And the entire time, this trailer is setting it up like this big inspirational, spiritual movie in a way. But I have this sneaking suspicion. I'm like, is this trailer just fucking with me? And this is really about possession or something like that, like demonic possession? Because that would be kind of genius. That's kind of my quick 2 cents on Pride and Prejudice and zombies. I'm in kind of a rush to see the Super Bowl here. But if you are a Pride and Prejudice aficionado and can stand a little blood and guts, I think you'll have fun with this movie. There were some people laughing in my theater who I feel they were more in on the joke of it than I was.